This is the hardest time of the year to garden. We have triple digit heat, we don't get any rainfall, and it's just miserable to be outside. So let's go through my summer garden routine, see what's working, what I need to triage. I see what needs a little bit of help from me, whether that's pruning or watering. Kind of make note and take stock of everything going on. By the way, I'm in North Texas. Let's get started. Some plants have been absolute rock stars, and some I'm honestly concerned about. It's been up in the 100s pretty often. I like to come out in the morning because it helps me know what's struggling and kind of what to do. And I found that over time, when it's this temperature outside, coming out in the morning and kind of just checking on everything. If you can do it once a day, that'd be great, but really just when you can is really important. This time of year is more about observing and doing small little quick tasks to keep everything alive and thriving. Some things that I typically do, I look for things that are not wilted anymore, that have recovered from overnight. I look for things that are wilted. I just kind of walk through and look at everything real quick and make sure nothing looks like it's really struggling. If it hasn't recovered overnight from the heat, that's kind of a big problem. I also will go around with my pruners just real quick and deadhead a little bit, not a lot in the heat, but just to kind of keep everything tidy. And I find that that helps my garden look really organized, and it keeps me kind of accountable with what's going on in it. I also have some zinnias that I planted that I'm checking every day to make sure that they're watered appropriately and that they're doing well in the heat. You kind of have to baby them at the very beginning. And I do have this ginkgo tree that I planted that looks really bad. Let me show you real quick, but I'm trying to decide if I want to move it or not. I don't know. Here it is, and also Peanut being a plant lover as well. But yeah, it's just getting kind of burnt. It's its first year, and to be honest with you, I don't really know why I put it here. Like, I'm kind of just regretting the placement in general, and I know that moving things is a risk, but it doesn't look good. Now, it is the very end of July, so it only needs to make it a little bit further. But yeah, I'm gonna try to decide today if I want to move it, if there's a good spot for it, because I think part of managing the heat is not being afraid to adapt. And this is definitely a plant, I mean, look at that, that needs to adapt. I need to help it. I put it in this spot. Normally I would have my coffee and I would just walk around and kind of see what's going on. So let's kind of start with that. So I like to go this way. I don't know if you guys have a particular way that you enjoy checking your garden, looking for any problems. There are some brown leaves on this olive tree. That's my fault. I had it by a window, and so it's just been like that for a long time. But this front area, this pathway spot, this bed, and then this other bed, they look pretty good. Now, they actually are not on drip irrigation, so I've tried to put only tough plants in here, and I do check on this area often. It's kind of right in front of me. There's a lot of really cool stuff in here. This bed that you're looking at right now is a true full sun. You can see the sun coming up, and it just stays up all day. And let's kind of go through it and just see what tasks we should do. Looks like we could deadhead the salvia if we wanted to, although it's doing fine without me. The basil I have in the front right here, I kind of have just decided I'm not gonna deflower. I don't use this when I'm cooking. I have other basil for that. And I like how bushy and filled in it is. Usually this time of year, this bed can get a little crazy. And as you see, that's certainly happening. This rose has no issue with the heat, nor does this zinnia that I planted. Just threw a seed down there, by the way. Butterfly bush is looking pretty good. I've got little herbs hiding under there. Ooh, that looks bad. What's going on there? Okay. That sage probably doesn't like the fact that this Russian sage on top of it has taken over. So that's something we're gonna wanna deal with today. Peanut is eating grass, classic. The coleus that I planted are gonna bleach out a little bit. In the heat, they'll be red again when it's not as hot. But I do wanna give some water to those guys because I just planted them. They're new. I already talked to you about the ginkgo tree. And with this giant crazy mystic spire salvia, I probably should but I was out of town for a long time and now I'm like, what do I do with this? I actually have already pruned it. You can see where the grass is dead. That's because it was like kind of taking over even more than it is. You know, at the same time, if it's not broken, maybe I shouldn't mess with it this time of year. And then I've got some new things I planted. That coleus is brand new. I have this little eucalyptus I'm trying to baby and just see how it does in the heat. And you can tell it's kind of scorching a little bit. So I'm gonna water that. And then this lantana right in front of you has not missed a beat. Pretty common for lantana. So that bed's looking pretty solid. Let's come over here. Again, this is a pretty tough full sun bed I have right in front of you now. It is on drip irrigation and I try to run my drip as little as possible, but I did run it a couple days ago for 30 minutes. This holly and blue Aloe cedar are looking great. Climbing rose is looking fine. I did start this little baby lantana as a clearance plant and it kind of died back, but it's coming in. So I'll look at that and water it and probably deadhead the dead material off of that. I did notice this deciduous magnolia is getting some yellow leaves on it and it looks like some of them have fallen off. So I'm gonna give that some additional water this morning and I'll show you kind of how I go about watering my trees and things. Everything else in the bed looks relatively normal to me. Nothing that needs additional attention. I can come in and deadhead some of these roses, and if I wanted to come in and pull out some of these dead lamb's ear leaves that are just burning a little bit in the extreme heat, I could do that. This right here is an allium, which was purple, and I don't think I'm gonna touch it because I kind of want it to go to seed, and I don't really mind how it looks in this bed. The salvia right in front of you would be a really good candidate to deadhead. It's barely got any blooms left, and that would be a super easy, quick project. What do you look for, you know, on your morning routine? Me and Peanut do this when we can. You're looking for yellowing leaves, anything that looks kind of sad, which I'll show you a good example right here actually. These two new leaves look really good, but then you can see right here, there's a little bit of stress on this lemon tree. It's a good point about containers. You need to water your containers every day if you don't want them to look heat stressed. I'm not super great at that, so you can see like my star jasmine, there's some dying vines in there. That's because I haven't watered every single day. So those are definitely two things I want to give some attention to today. Let's keep going this way. So far so good over here. I noticed this honeysuckle is looking a little dry, so I will get started on that. And I kind of was gonna do an espalier thing, but I haven't really worked on that project in a while since it's not grown in yet. This mum down here and these yarrow, they were kind of in the shade for a while, so they don't look amazing either. I might just give them some supplemental water, and probably long term I should move these mums because they're getting overpowered by this red bud. Okay. Here's where I throw my hose most of the time. Don't judge me. Okay, another deciduous magnolia that's not doing well. So I have to tell you, I don't know that I would recommend this tree to somebody as being a good heat tolerant plant because all three of mine in my yard kind of look like this. Now, I could water them more. If you're willing to water them more, go for it. But this is what they look like if you don't baby them. I think they're worth it though for the blooms they put out in the spring. I'm just letting you know. This area down here that we're about to look at can get really dry. There's a lot of root competition in here of my own making. And so a lot of times this time of year, I see things that are struggling. So let's kind of start here. My Temukiyama Japanese maple is looking pretty good. This is where I have some zinnia seedlings going on. They need some help. And there's another brand new coleus there. By the way, this I think is dead. When I was out of town for a month, this is a ruby slippers hydrangea. I think it just got too dry. And when I came back, it had like 3 leaves on it, and I just don't think it's made it. It's a tough spot. I've struggled to get something to live there. So I could pull that out if I wanted to. Also, these iris look like they're struggling to me. See how droopy they are? I might put something in this spot, but I'm trying to wait for the right thing. You gotta be pretty tough to live down here. You don't get too much sun, and you can see, here's a really good example. This is actually also ruby slippers. It's I think, second year in the ground. It needs water. If I don't come in and water this in the next few days, it could die. So I'm glad I came out and looked. A lot of times, Japanese maples, when they're new or younger, they'll kind of defoliate at the top. That's sort of what's happening here with this one. I'm not super worried about it long term. I just wanted to show you like a strategy that plants will use when they're stressed. A plant that's pretty bulletproof, by the way, are these little ponytail Carexes. They don't need anything. They will survive without you for a long time. I'll show you more of that bed in a second. Let's go this way. Nothing looks too dreadful in here. This hydrangea seems okay to me. It's a little baby one that I'm starting. I don't see any heat stress on this stuff, which is awesome because we can really focus our attention on the areas that need it. Let's come over into the deck area. Beautiful day, at least right now. I know it's hot because I noticed, do you see all the leaves on the ground? This is from the big live oak, and it's kind of like my canary in the coal mine of the heat. This is telling me, hey, it's hot, and even a really, really big established plant is struggling a little bit, the leaf drop on it. So that's a really good way to kind of evaluate your garden, is something that's super established trying to tell you something. Here are my little containers. They're basically in full shade right now, and I kind of keep them all here together so that I can water them and monitor them. You'll see, like, because I'm kind of spotty with the water, the fig tree's yellowing out a little bit. That's water stress. That's me not watering enough. The geraniums are like really not happy with me either. And so I'll come in, ooh, actually, let's look at this. This mint plant also is really dry. Mint's pretty resilient. I think it'll be okay. But I did want to show you, if you take a few days off of watering on a small container, it'll let you know. It'll tell you. By the way, if you're looking for a bulletproof outdoor plant, aloe's super good. Here's a little baby agave, and there's another one hiding in there. Those would be good for somebody that doesn't have time to water, that wants something in a container that's actually alive. Another sign that something needs water is, see how these leaves are curled in a little bit? That's your indication of just a little bit of stress. Nothing too serious as long as you address it. Here in the garden veggie bed, the herbs are doing okay. They certainly could use some water looking at them. This needs some water. Oh my goodness. And that looks pretty awful. So I'll get that stuff going. I try not to stress about it too much. You know, if you buy an herb and it's a couple bucks and it doesn't really establish in your garden, no big deal to me. Some things just, they were grown in a greenhouse and then you put them in your yard and they don't like it. It's okay. Learn from it. Maybe those herbs are in too much sun. Back in here, everything's pretty self-sufficient, but you'll notice all these roses aren't really blooming. It's because it's so hot. Don't expect them to bloom. I don't fertilize this time of year. I just let everything kind of live, and I try to make note of things that are struggling, that need additional help to survive. This amber ghost Japanese maple is supposed to have these really cool quirky leaves, by the way. So I think that's doing pretty well, actually. One of my roses is like growing into this red bud. That's a situation I'm gonna want to deal with today. Kind of on both sides. I want to give both of those plants a little more breathing room and space. I'm honestly a little scared to come over here because this is the area I tend to neglect because I don't see it. It's not like right in front of my nose. So let's see what's going on. Okay, yeah. Here's another deciduous magnolia that is mad at its location. This gets a good block of sun during the day, but it's just not going to be happy with its current amount of heat. The soil's not super great back here, and I don't think it's going to die, but I wouldn't call it thriving. You can tell how hot it's been too because you can see some of the scorching on these roses back here. And even on the mums, I mean, mums are so resilient, but these leaves on the top are just like really needing some help and some water. So I'll do that today. We're gonna ignore my tomatoes that I haven't pulled out yet, but obviously, you know, they're done. It's too hot for them now. Looks like we just have some individual plants to spot check and water. Some deadheading we can do on your mums. You definitely want to deadhead them so they come back in the fall for you. So I'll take care of that today too. And I'm surprised how nice my crepe myrtle looks. I kind of wasn't sure if it was struggling. It doesn't really get any water from me. You know what I just saw? This guy needs water, and that makes sense because I haven't watered this guy like ever. This would be a good example of it's a little stressed. It's not happy with me. I need to water. If I don't water this, it's going to be a bigger problem than it currently is. And that's the benefit of just coming out and looking at your garden. Just check and see what's happening. Nothing's wrong with this hydrangea. That's pretty impressive. This is an Alice variety, by the way. And pretty happy with this Japanese maple. It does get a little block of sun and it's looking super healthy. So once things have been in the ground for a few years, they tend to be a little bit more resilient. The younger the plant is, watch it more often. I wanted to show you, I think, what is the most difficult spot in my yard real quick. So we're right by the live oak tree and things tend to get really dry in here. Look at that. Ah, that's not good. So this probably needs additional water. I think I mentioned this earlier, but there's a lot of root competition in here. So things can just get dry and need some help. So this area is on drip, but I think I kind of need to redo the drip. It's not very good, seemingly. Even this rose right here has got some yellow leaves on it. My toughest spot for sure. Here's a field experiment for you. I put a rose in here. I put 2 down here just to see if they would do well. They have not. So this was a place I thought maybe I could move that ginkgo tree that I had talked about earlier, but I'm not sure if it would get enough sun down in there. So I'm gonna kind of keep thinking about that. Is it worth the risk of transplanting that ginkgo? Would it get enough sun in this spot? Do I want it there? I do think there's room for it. It's one of those kind of dwarf ones. All right, get that going and let's water. So I wanted to show you, for watering containers, this is typically what I do. I'll leave it in here and I'll water it until I see water coming out of the bottom. So this will take at least 30 seconds or so. And this would be a good time. I'll show you this right now. I'll pull off any dead leaves or things. So I'll let that keep getting watered, kind of do some tasks while that happens. Okay, so I will just blow dry those leaves probably into the bed, the good old chop and drop method. But this looks visually way better. And about halfway through me kind of pruning that, I did want to say that with this star jasmine, a lot of times it'll kind of get brown leaves, but the vine will still be alive. So what I did was I tried to pull off most of the brown leaves so I can just watch it. And if I come out again and there's like 50 more brown leaves, then I know I need to water. Okay, now I'm gonna go around and I'm just gonna water every single plant that we kind of identified. Like I said, this area right here is not on drip irrigation. So I do like to kind of water it a little bit every day. You're supposed to water by the base of the plants, like not on the leaves. So I'm just going through and doing that a little bit. And I also just like to enjoy looking at my garden too. So that's part of this time in the morning as well. Oh, here's a zinnia that needs some extra help. You can see it's burning. this Magnolia from earlier that's super dry. I'm gonna leave the hose on that for a while and kind of deadhead this bed. And I find that timing works pretty well. By the way, I mentioned that I haven't really run my sprinklers this year. I really try not to run them. And my grass is pretty green. Now it's not as green as it could be, but that makes me less worried about like my water bill. You know, I don't mind spending a minute watering that deciduous magnolia because I don't run my sprinklers automatically. There is this text you can get called, I think it's called Water is Awesome, and it'll tell you how much to water your ground. Typically it says 0 inches until about June, and then even like this week I think it told me to do a 75, like 0.75 inches. So yeah, that's just my system. And if you want a really pristine yard, then yeah, I guess water it more. But while I'm kind of waiting on that magnolia, you can see behind me, and I'll even show you here, the grass is pretty green. Now that's partially because I have part shade over here. You know, the most sunny spots over here, they can brown out a little bit. But just my 2 cents on sprinklers. I have them, I've used them less and less. One strategy that I'll do is I half closed the hose so it can kind of slow water. And so I put it down here on this really sad magnolia. And so now while that's going, I'll spend about 5 minutes kind of deadheading, and that will give the root ball a much higher quality soak. That's a really good strategy. If you see something that's really struggling, just leave it on drip for 10 minutes. It's like fake drip irrigation. I do that all the time. I did want to talk about pruning for a second. So I said I was going to come in and deadhead. You don't really want to deadhead too much this time of year. But for me, I can't handle if these 2 roses aren't deadheaded, and that's because this is kind of like the main entryway of my garden, so I am going to deadhead them a little bit because I really like it when they're blooming. I tend to be the kind of gardener that just does the chop and drop. So like when I deadhead, I just put it right back in the bed. Works for me. Mulch is really important, and all that stuff eventually breaks down. Now, you don't want too much of that stuff in your, like if it's not breaking down, it can be a problem, but it's so hot this time of year. As long as you're watering, I find the chop and drop method works pretty well, and it's less cleanup for me, which I like. Okay, let's move the hose again. All right, so that's gotten a good soak. Let's put it on this one over here. That looks pretty sad as well. I am gonna take some time right now and water some of the stuff I saw earlier. Start with these zinnias. Long-term investment down here. Going to be beautiful, I hope. Gonna water every container for about 10 seconds as well. Also, didn't realize there was jalapenos in this container. I don't know like if it's a seed from last year, but that's pretty cool. As I come through anything newly planted, I will also give a good soaking too. While that new plant is soaking, I did want to show you how pretty everything's looking. So, as neglectful as I can be, I have kind of put plants in place that will do well in the heat. You know, like minus the ginkgo tree, that's my fault. This whole bed is really luscious and pretty, and I'm not gonna hand water anything in here, except for that coleus that's brand new. The only things I'm really hand watering that I'm noticing are new plants, hydrangeas, and containers. And that's kind of the big 3 that you should look out for. If you've been following the channel, you'll remember this guy, the little lantana that I kind of almost killed by not watering it. It's coming back. Yay! Another new coleus to water in. This poor mint hates me right now. It's probably in too much sun. Sorry, dude. And like I said, while I'm here, I'll just deadhead a little bit while I'm letting that root ball soak in. These geraniums look great. That's crazy. Okay, I don't love how this looks. And I'll be honest with you, it might be a goner. It didn't look like this the other day. That's a lesson for you with the heat. And I didn't check this bed in the past 2 days. So this could have just been in the last 2 days. And that brings me to kind of an important point about like this time of year. You need to be really diligent with just observing your yard. It's going to save you a lot of heartache. By the way, if you don't like messiness, don't plant a crepe myrtle. You can see my little crepe myrtle spent blooms all over this garden bed. I actually didn't plant this big crepe myrtle above us, but I certainly know it's here because of the amount of little bud drop that it gives off, and it can be pretty annoying. Just saying, like, I just want you to know if that's gonna bother you. While that hose is soaking, I did want to say there are things I'm not planting this time of year that's really important. So one thing I'm not planting is, I got this little gem magnolia on sale. It will not be going in the ground right now. I'm just going to treat it like a container and probably plant it mid-September. And that's going to make the tree much happier with me and have a much better transplant. So yes, you can plant this time of year if you want. It's going to require a lot of maintenance from you and probably twice a day watering. For me, that's just not something I'm going to do. So knowing when to plant and when not to plant, I think is really important in the heat. Okay, let's finish up this watering. Two things I can't recommend enough. One is mulch. It's super important in North Texas that you have mulch. I mean, probably everywhere, but when it's so hot, what the mulch does is it insulates the ground. It's going to regulate the temperature, and luckily I've mulched a lot as I've developed my garden. Usually I do like a chip drop where they drop off mulch for free. For me, it's not the best quality. They just put it in my driveway. I actually haven't done that this year, but my garden beds are really filled in. And I think because I chop and drop a lot and I have this big live oak tree, soil does kind of have a healthy layer of dead leaves and things breaking down. But certainly if you're a new gardener or you're wondering why everything's dying in the heat, it's really likely that the topsoil is just really hot. Like if it's 100 degrees out, that's gonna burn your roots. So if you're playing garden triage, which is kind of what I'm doing this morning, and something's doing really poorly, look at the ground around it. And do you just see soil, or do you have like a nice layer of mulch? Is the plant like completely on its own, or is it like this garden bed right here where it's pretty filled in, and so the soil temperature on the ground is not going to be that hot? If you have a plant that's just completely on its own and it has no mulch, it's much less likely to thrive in this temperature. And I'll even show you down here. There's just a lot of kind of natural mulch in my yard. It can be a good and a bad thing, but it's something for you to observe when you're diagnosing issues in your garden. Also, if you don't have shade cloth, I would really consider investing in shade cloth. I have 50% shade cloth and 70% shade cloth. I'm not using them in my backyard right now, but I do have a really cool new plant in my side yard that's a Japanese maple, and it started burning a little bit, and so I went and covered it. It's like staked up. It's got like a little canopy over it of a shade cloth, and it's completely stopped burning. It looks amazing. So Mulch and shade cloth, really, really great things to battle the heat. My Chinese French trees, this one, and this one, I planted in 2022. And the reason I remember that is because I went to Scotland for 3 weeks and they were babies and they were starting to scorch already. And so that's when I bought that shade cloth actually. And now they're big and healthy. But I just used actually this arbor that you see, and I put the shade cloth over it. And at the time it fit over this tree and it looked really bad, but I was on vacation and I wasn't sure if my house sitter, who I really like, was going to have the plant knowledge that I have, and it saved it. So shade cloth can be really valuable for just ensuring something's going to do well that you really want to protect. If one of these new trees, like this redbud or this amber ghost, was struggling, I would definitely consider using the shade cloth. But I think I've told you guys before, that's part of the reason I have this umbrella out in the summer, is in case of like random emergencies. And yeah, if you haven't considered shade cloth before, I would say it's a must-have to protect your investments. I know that a lot of gardens, people that do vegetable gardens and stuff, have a lot of success with that here too. Like they'll grow things at 50% shade and they'll do beautifully. So if you didn't know about shade cloth, look it up. It's also, just so you know, very different than, ooh, look at this. That's an example of just heat stress, not enough water going on. But the shade cloth is a really good investment in protecting your investments and just giving your plants a little bit of a break from the heat. One other tip for you guys is, if you're like home all day on a Saturday, you can do like slow drip irrigation with your hose all day. I'll do that all the time. I'll set an hour timer on my phone and just go out and put the hose on something that's struggling, on just a true drip from the hose. And then I'll go about my day, the timer will go off and I'll move it. And if it's a really big thing, you can do an hour. You can choose how much time you want to set for each plant. But if you don't have drip irrigation installed, or you don't want to spend an hour like watering, it's a really good way to give your plants like really what they need, a thorough soaking. Hand watering can only go so far. They really do enjoy if you do the drip thing. So if you haven't tried that before, that's kind of my Saturday or Sunday routine. If I'm home, I'll just live my life and then come out and move the hose. And it's something I tend to do this time of year. It also helps me kind of stay informed on what's going on in my garden. Like I'll come out and then I'll look for another plant that needs water too. So at the beginning of the video, I told you about this ginkgo tree. I've decided I'm not gonna move it yet. I'm gonna watch it, and I'm actually about to put the hose on it just to make sure it's getting enough water. But I'm gonna leave it here and see how it does. It's not very rooted in, so it could be an easy fall project if I want to transplant it. I just don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. It's going to be really stressed being transplanted in the heat. It's going to be stressed either way, but I wanted to kind of walk you through my thought process there. This would be a great candidate for a shade cloth, and so I'm considering that right now. How could I get a shade cloth over it? But yeah, that's sort of my garden morning routine, is coming out, watering, thinking about potential solutions to problems that are popping up. And if you do it often and you make little adjustments, you're able to diagnose, and I think I used the word triage earlier. You're able to triage really quickly, and those little problems don't become big problems or dead plants as often. I am watering that ginkgo right now. But I was gonna say, August can teach you a lot about your garden. It's a really good time of year to make note of what's thriving. because those are the plants I tend to repurchase. So you'll notice I have a lot of salvia in the yard. That's because this is what it looks like right now. I know this one's kind of a monster, but if you'll look at your garden and see things that are doing really well this time of year and make note of what to repurchase, I have found that that's really helped me kind of put repetition in my yard, and it's like smart repetition. There's a reason I have so many Russian sage pockets in my yard. It's because they just thrive without me. And if you'll do that in your space, I think you'll save money and have a really beautiful, diverse garden as well. So I think the theme for August is just observation, looking, taking note of what works in your yard. I would love to hear from you guys in the comments. What's thriving in your yard? What are some plants that you've observed have done really well in the heat that you've kind of repeated year after year? And if you like learning about gardening, North Texas gardening, practical gardening for busy people, consider liking and subscribing. I'd love to have you watch my channel, and I try to put out videos that are for people that love gardening, want to do it like at a really high level but not spend a lot of money. And so if that's you, consider subscribing. Thanks so much for watching.